Happy holidays, everybody. This is Patrick from Real Herbalism Radio. Candace, myself, and Sue are taking the month of December on hiatus, meaning we're not recording. We're still doing stuff for the Practical Herbalist, but just not recording. So enjoy one of these past episodes. This is a classic episode, if you will, of Real Herbalism Radio, and until today was only available to the Herbal Nerd Society. So we hope everyone enjoys it. Have a great holiday season, and we will talk to you at the beginning of the next year. Welcome to Real Herbalism Radio, show 130, Kratom on Trial, with special guest Michael Tierra. Today's show is brought to you by Candace Hunter Creations.
Candace Hunter Creations, family-centered herbal practitioner and health coach, connecting people with plants to create wellness. Learn more at CandaceHunter.com.
And Occupy Medical.
Occupy Medical is a free street reach integrated health clinic centered in Eugene, Oregon. We are a 501c3. You can send your donations to occupy-medical.org.
Hunter Creation, graphic designers and website designers making your marketing ideas into reality. Visit them at huntercreation.com. Also, Ace High Heat Graphics, custom imprinted t-shirts, jerseys. Need something for a fundraiser? They're a great resource. You can find them at acehighheatgraphics.com. And the Herbal Nerd Society. For just $4.99 a month or $49 a year, you can get access to 100 articles, Sue, now?
100, yep.
And that doesn't even include the
That's
awesome...
3 digits.
Right, it doesn't even include the podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So with the podcast on top of that, 200 articles that you have access to as special resources if you are an Herbal Nerd Society member.
And people have said many times they see the link and they're like, oh, I can't read the article. Well, you have to be a member.
You have to be a member.
There is this is exclusive article and podcast availability, but it's only $4.99 a month. And if you just can't deal with that, there's plenty. There's hundreds, over 500 other articles on our podcast or on our website to check out. So the swanky stuff is our Herbal Nerd Society.
Yes, the swanky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have our special sponsor, right?
Yeah. What is it, Candace?
The Journal of Foundational Herbalism, published through the School of Eclectic Herbal Medicine.
Yes.
That's a Tom Seeley joint, isn't it?
That is.
Thomas
That is.
Lee. Yep.
Yeah, so we want to send a hearty thanks out to them because they have put out ads for Real Herbalism Radio in the past. And Thomas has been an awesome guest.
Yeah, wonderful herbalist there.
Do they have a website for that, or a place or did you already say that? Sure, I just think you said the name, but you didn't say the website.
You'll see that on our show notes. So go ahead and click on the show notes, and you'll see a connection there. Thank you for sponsoring us.
So how about this, Thomas? If you're listening, we need those ads.
We really need those ads.
All right. So there's some springtime or becoming springtime. Well, at least here, not on the East Coast, but we have some events coming up. And Sue, I think you're going to be at a couple.
Yes, I will be. There are 2 events. There's the Mount Pisgah Wildflower Festival, which is a really inexpensive annual event. And it's here in Eugene, Oregon at the Mount Pisgah Arboretum. And then we also had...
What's the date on that?
There's a date on that.
Yeah, do you know
definitely 2018.
Oh, so that's how far we know?
Oh,
so
definitely.
You'll be there, but you don't know exactly when the date is.
I know that 11 o'clock is when I'm leading this.
Is it typically in April or May?
It's, yep.
Okay, jeez.
Yes, it is. Yeah, okay. And it's a Sunday.
Can we stall long enough for Candace to find it?
I'm looking it up.
I think based on other events, it must be from 10 to 5.
Yeah, right, 10 to 5, sure.
Yeah.
I lead an early walk, and then I go over to clinic and finish off the day there.
I see. Oh, Candace has
Sunday, May 20th.
May 20th.
Wow, that's really late this year. It seems like it's late.
It does seem late. But it's a good thing that it's late because the weekend before that is when I'm at the Traditional Roots Institute.
Nice segue, Sue.
Yes.
It's like you've done this before.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to us about that one.
Yeah, that's another one of those yearly things, and it's up in Portland, and it's at the yep. It used to be called. You'll see it in the show notes. Yeah, it used to be called NCNM, and it's not called NCNM anymore. But it's in downtown Portland.
It's not at the Rose Center or whatever they call that, the convention center there.
No, I think it's at the. one of my sons lives in downtown Portland, just a block away from that school. So
Oh, how perfect.
I know.
You know, crash his pad that
exactly.
night. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So we had a great interview with Michael, and one of the things that I forgot to tell him was that any sound that comes through his computer, we'll hear too. Mm-hmm. So occasionally you will hear that he has received mail.
Yep.
And for some other reason, there's a frog sound. So other than that, it's a really great show, and I just can't edit those parts out. So those things will be coming in. Plants may be the medicine of the people, but not all plants are equal in the eyes of the law. Over the past few months, Kratom has been targeted by the United States DEA and FDA as a potentially dangerous plant, and it's not the first. Today we're talking with Michael Tierra, Doctor of Oriental Medicine, California State licensed acupuncturist, founder of the American Herbalist Guild, and owner and founder of the East-West School of Planetary Herbology, about how plants have fared in the American legal system over the past 50 years. Now here are your hosts, Candace Hunter and Sue Sierra-Lupe.
I'm Candace Hunter.
And I'm Sue Sierra-Lupe.
And welcome to Real Herbalism Radio.
Welcome, Michael. It's an honor to have you on our show. So you've got quite a bit of experience working with herbs and particularly Kratom. Can you start by telling us about that?
I'd heard about Kratom for a while because it was widely used in the recreational for recreational use for at least 20 years before, actually in the United States, before I actually got to recognizing that it has some very important value as a medicinal herb. And so in that respect, I think I was one of the first herbalists to recognize and speak a lot about its therapeutic benefits. And there are two or three others that I know of, but at the time we started talking about it, we were viewed askance as being some sort of dope heads or something. But
you've actually found that it has quite a few good uses, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's arguably probably the most important medicine in any doctor's medica is for pain relief. And herbalists always had certain herbs that are now illegal, like cocoa leaf and poppy and things like that that were considered to be illegal, so we can't use them. And the other herbs that we use for pain relief are much milder, but don't produce the immediate or relief that people oftentimes need who are suffering from intractable and severe pain.
Right. Yeah. Meadowsweet is great if you have a mild headache, but not if you're suffering from like lupus or something like that.
And there's Jamaican dogwood and the Chinese herb. It escapes me at the moment, but anyway, it's also in the poppy family. And but for pain relief, these are really quite mild compared to what kratom can do. Kratom acts like an opioid, even though it is not an opioid. And it can produce relief from pain within half hour to 45 minutes. And now, it's not as strong as an opioid, but it's strong enough to manage most conditions that we might encounter. For instance, I've used it for people with who had kidney stones, and they were able to function normally after they took a dose of kratom. They were able to function normally for the whole day because of that, and it doesn't impair consciousness at all, and it doesn't have any of the side effects of opioids. So one of the side effects of opioids is that it causes you to have compromised respiration, and gradually your oxygen and your energy is basically being cut off. So when people are being put on opioids, it's oftentimes somewhat of a death sentence, I think. And so kratom doesn't have that effect, and it actually doesn't affect your consciousness whatsoever. You just take it, and then you find that the pain is just gradually kind of melts away and or reduces to a very tolerable level where it's easy to operate with. So that's one great use of it, and I've used it for people who come to me with rheumatoid arthritis and with severe back disorders with discs that have deteriorated, and basically things that herbs can't treat very effectively, nor can Western medicine.
Right.
And the only thing they give you is opioids, and opioids are severely addicting, and kratom is not. And so it's an incredible herb. I think it's one of the greatest herbs on the planet, personally, and it's really worth our fighting to protect and keep it available, keep it legal. Now, one of the other great uses of it is that it's very popular in this respect, is that it's used for people who are getting off of opioid addictions of all kinds, and also people who are on antidepressants, and people who are getting off alcohol, preventing withdrawal symptoms from all of these conditions. And so there's literally thousands of people in the United States who use kratom for that purpose. So,
right, and there's no actual real deaths clearly linked just to kratom, right? And it seems like all the deaths that are supposedly linked to it are also, kratom was one of a cacophony of other substances that were found,
including fentanyl.
The FDA keeps throwing up a number of 36 deaths, but the word that should be listened to there is associated with kratom. That's a big word. Associated means that they were taking other kinds of drugs, that any of which could have caused the death itself, and so nobody has actually died from kratom by itself, and so now there is because it is being used recreationally. There's also the tendency for people to try to use it to get stoned.
Yeah.
And to that respect, people will take very large doses.
How big is large? Well,
anywhere from 20 grams, 20 to 30 grams at a time, which is it's hard to imagine how they can stomach it, because kratom at a high dose like that usually causes you to vomit. So,
right. Yeah, 5 grams is, for comparison, considered a medicinal dose from what I've noticed standardly.
The ways to get around that is to make an extract, and so making an extract or putting it in capsules, you can easily drop a lot of it that way, and perhaps that's one way that people use it. But as an herb to get stoned on, it's really very, very it's not very satisfactory. It's not fun. It's not bad.
No, I can think of a selection of others that work much better at lower concentrations
and cheaper.
Kratom
is not inexpensive.
Absolutely, but there are people who have addictive personalities, and they get onto something, and they'll just take it and take it and take it, and then they claim that they're addicted, and the addiction is not something that I've actually run into personally. I've read about it, but there are people who take large doses over the course of weeks and months on a daily basis, and of course your body gets used to something like that, as it would with any substance actually, and so getting off of it sometimes it can be a challenge for some people.
Sure, but getting off of coffee is also a challenge for some people. So, for perspective, people with addictive personalities can find themselves addicted to things like Coca-Cola or coffee or sugar.
Right. For
they struggle.
People that are coming off of Kratom, the withdrawal seem to be just over a couple of days and nothing compared to what the opioids that they would be taking instead look like. It's, you can have some shakes, nervousness, sleeplessness, or some people have itchy skin for a couple of days, but that is zero compared to what it's like to help somebody coming off of an opioid or heroin or something like that. And we should clarify for those listeners that may have gotten some misinformation. No matter what you hear, chemically, Kratom is not an opioid. It does bind to or attach to the opioid receptors, much like cheese and beef and spinach does. So that doesn't make it an opioid. That just means it attaches to the brain's opioid receptors.
Right. That's absolutely correct.
So this isn't the first herb, though, that you've seen end up on the FDA and DEA's hit list, is it?
No, and that's an unfortunate thing because herbalism is not is like it's like a musical instrument. It's like I play the piano and there's 88 keys on the piano. Well, in herbal medicine, you have materia medica, sometimes of hundreds of herbs that you need in order to be able to practice and treat most conditions that come to you.
Right.
And if you and so it's like if you're trying to create an herbal formula and you can't use ma huang, for instance, because it's so effective for the respiratory system and for the lungs and for allergies and for asthma and things like that. It's like it's specific for those things. It's like trying to play a incredibly complex piano concerto missing middle C on the keyboard.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous.
And people try to substitute different things, and it's not very satisfactory. Now, when I first started herbalism, I studied with Dr. Raymond Christopher. He was like one of the lone voices in the wilderness when herbalism had practically completely died out in the United States of America. And the only regulation that there was is that you could not is practicing medicine without a license, which is a standing issue today as well.
Yeah.
And so I was with him an apprentice with him, and I was with him when I saw him getting busted in San Francisco and being marched off in handcuffs and sent to jail with a $50,000 bail on his back, which is more than you have for rapes.
Wow.
So,
and what was he arrested for?
He was arrested for practicing medicine without a license. He was working in basically a space that we had provided for him, doing iris diagnosis and recommending his herbal potions for each person based on reading the iris of the eye.
Okay.
And I don't know that he was specifically saying, I'm giving you this herb to treat, cystitis, or this herb to treat psoriasis, but he would say he would describe the conditions of the eye that a particular organ was not functioning up to par, and he would prescribe specific herbs for each of the organs that might be involved in compromising somebody's health. So people would sometimes be taking 5 and 6 different products at the same time. It may seem startling to some people, but really that's how herbalism is practiced.
Mm-hmm.
You have to treat organs, and sometimes you can put it all into one formula, and sometimes you have to use several formulas together. So that was at that time there was the last herbal pharmacy in the United States was on Ellis Street in San Francisco, and they were selling herbal products and herbal potions to people all over the United States, and there was such a thing as an herbal pharmacist, and they were the last ones when they closed their door. There's no more herbal pharmacies in the United States of America at the time, at least in that of that type. When we practiced, we were working in the counterculture setting, so that we were really not necessarily infringing upon mainstream, and we had no idea that herbalism was ever. But by we, I'm saying a handful of people that I happened to run into, mainly through the aegis of Rosemary Gladstar, who brought a number of us together in Northern California. So I think of people like David Winston and Christopher Hobbs and William Lasassier and a few others who were part of that generation, who really ushered in what I call the mid 20th century herbal renaissance. But we had no idea that herbalists ever go mainstream. And, suddenly, herb products were being sold at Walmart. It just kept going until it's a multi-billion-dollar industry today.
Right.
And so one of the great boons in terms of herbal regulations was the passing of the DEA food supplement regulation. This was in 1994. Dietary supplement that allowed people to use herbs on their function, and not for treating disease, but for instance, valerian was good to help promote restful sleep, but you couldn't see that it was good for insomnia. And
right.
That's pretty much the kind of legal ways that are regulated today. Of course, as a Chinese herbal practitioner, I can treat diseases and name diseases and so forth. And I think we all tend to push the envelope as in our own personal practice. I do teach how to do it legally. Yeah. Many states have a health freedom bill that, like California does, where when you provide an informed disclosure statement, you can actually recommend herbs and diet to people to promote health, and so that many of my herbalist students around the country have a very thriving practice because they're able to practice in states that have a health freedom bill or in states.
So have you been using Kratom under the shelter of the TCM practitioner experience that you have? Is that because it is an herb from the Asian continent, Malaysia and Thailand border? Is that how you started using it?
Using Kratom?
Yeah.
Well, like anybody else, I had Kratom that I purchased online, and it's very important that you get it from a reputable source. And I had it sitting in my house for 2 months before I got up the nerve to actually take it.
Why?
Why? Because I was afraid it was going to somehow or another rattle my brains, and I can't afford to do that at this point in my life. And I don't even like smoking marijuana for the same reasons. And so finally one day, I think I had some sort of a hip pain or something like that, and I decided to screw up my courage, and I took a teaspoon of it. And I just basically I promote and believe that you should take plain leaf powdered kratom, which is not real pleasant if you're not used to it, but basically just take this powder straight. I put it in my mouth and swallow water. I start with a teaspoon. You can increase up to 2 teaspoons if needed to get a sufficient level of relief. But a teaspoon is usually enough for most people to get relief from most pain. So I did that, and I was just amazed within a half hour that the pain was gone. I felt clear-headed, and actually I could function much more intellectually a lot clearer than I could before I took it. So Kratom is remarkable. It has 40 different alkaloids, and some of them are stimulants, and some of them are sedatives. And so when you take it in a small dose, the stimulants seem to be the most notable effect. In larger doses, the sedative effect occurs, but in all cases, pain is relieved. And one person I know has ADHD, and he takes white vein kratom, which is the stimulating kratom, and he takes like a half a teaspoon in the morning, which instead of taking Ritalin, that is totally enough to control his attention deficit disorder problems throughout the day. So
nice.
So anyway, that's when I started to use it. Then I started coaxing other people to use it, and then I sell it to my patients, usually at a very cheap price, because Kratom, when you buy it wholesale, and anybody can buy it wholesale when you buy it from reputable dealers, it's actually a really cheap herb. I mean, you talk about the leaves of the tree,
right?
And usually it's the species osa, the red vein, that I think people have familiarity with, and that I've seen some the studies on it. What would you define as being a reputable source for these?
Reputable sources?
Mm-hmm. Like, what would be some of the characteristics? Obviously, don't go to a website that has everything in caps and exclamation points. And
you have to just buy it from companies who have that reputation. Kratom Spot is one. Kratoma is another one. Phyto Eclectica is another one. And so there are a few online sources, and I recommend buying it from online sources like that, not in head shops.
Yeah.
The Practical Herbalist Press, that's in addition to our website and our podcast.
That is right. Practical Herbalist Press is all about providing really good books and information written by experienced herbalists. Us, but others eventually as well.
Yes, that's very true. And it's bite-sized information that we research the heck out of. We have medical information out there that we're really doing a lot of research on. We have growing, gardening with herbs. We got stuff about pets, your home, your family.
Ethnobotany.
Mm-hmm.
We also put it in terms of the traditional ways we've talked about
historic,
herbs. Historic, whether they're warm and cooling, that sort of thing.
Mythical and very practical stuff. The Practical Herbalist Press is dedicated to providing the best herbal related books on the market. Look for our titles on Amazon, search for the Practical Herbalist Press, or visit our website at practicalherbalistpress.com.
So one of my concerns with Kratom is that it's going to end up becoming a regulated herb like mahang, which is ephedra. And ephedra is one of those ones it was or could be a very powerful tool for helping herbalists help people with asthma and other bronchial problems. And most of us don't have access to that because of the way the laws are structured. I understand, and I'm not sure if it's actually accurate, that like you as a practitioner of Chinese medicine you have access to it, but
no, I don't.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't. That's unfortunate. There are a number of Chinese herbs and substances that are used in Chinese medicine that are incredibly important, but have been just categorically not available. And I try to get them smuggled in or in some way, whatever, so I can use them in my clinic.
Sure.
But kratom is illegal in a few states in the country, like Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, Vermont, Rhode Island, Wisconsin, Sarasota County, Florida, San Diego. Is legal in California, but interesting, a city can make it illegal. So San Diego, kratom is illegal, and Jerseyville, Illinois, and Denver, Colorado. So So it is, and it's legal in most countries in the world, but there are a few countries that ban it.
So when you saw this happen with Ma Hung years ago, is it the same kind of pattern that we're seeing happening with Kratom?
No, it's a little different because Ma Huang was an obvious situation because people were really dying from the Ma Huang.
Yeah, legitimately taking like 600% more than they should have, like that baseball player, for example.
They were dying from the Ma Huang because people were using it for weight loss and also as a substitute for speed. They were concentrating very highly for that purpose. So there were some reported deaths strictly from the use of Ma Huang. This has not occurred with Kratom. And counterbalancing with that, you have thousands of people who are now depending on it as a substitute for opioids and getting off of opioids, and withdrawing from alcohol and different things like that. So there's a huge population of people who are championing keeping it legal. They were able to hold the Drug Enforcement Organization at bay for a year, from 2016 to the present. And there are a number of senators that they were able to get on their side as well. So, so it still is not illegal in this country. And the FDA keeps throwing out all this bad news about it, but it hasn't translated into any legislation. Every once in a while, they'll do a token bust of some being imported, but nothing significant.
Why do you speculate that there's so much press against this herb and so much money being thrown at trying to criminalize it?
Well, you're talking about the number one cash cow of the pharmaceutical industry, which is opioids, pain drug, and anything that's going to take an edge off of that market is a threat. I'll take an edge off.
Yeah, we have a bunch of troops in Afghanistan making sure that there are heavily defended opium fields. So that's quite a bit of cash right there.
Exactly. So I mean, that's a major issue, and I don't know how one gets around that. The pharmaceutical companies can't ignore the fact that Kratom is working for them, even though the FDA says there's no proof that it does anything that's of any value.
I find that FDA's right now, I mean, they're saying things like 36 deaths associated with Kratom, and they're not mentioning the 115 deaths a day associated with opioid addiction, and in most cases directly connected clearly to opioid consumption. I mean, that's
36 deaths from comfrey or from anything like that. If any drug company put out a drug, and that's what they got, they would say, "Hallelujah, we got a winner," because
only 36.
Only 36.
But the comfrey issue was another big issue. I mean, many of us herbalists still balk at the idea that comfrey is dangerous, even though we know about pyrrolizidine alkaloids and the damaging effect that it has on the liver from certain plants from the heliotrope family that animals would eat and would develop veno-occlusive disease. In other words, the liver just shuts down.
Right.
And so on the other hand, herbs like comfrey and have many other, hundreds of other things besides one particular toxic principle, and you can find a toxic principle in practically any any substance. And I would agree that pyrrolizidine alkaloids are definitely an issue for concern, but there's something about comfrey where it doesn't hold up. That the fear and trepidation associated with its use doesn't hold up, and worldwide, people were millions of people were taking comfrey on a daily basis, and I think they came up with 5 different cases around the world where they could find veno-occlusive disease.
Right. Well, the dose makes the poison.
But and of course, the real issue is that you especially don't want pregnant women to take it, because the developing baby would have a problem with its liver developing properly. Well, hell, before I ever knew anything about that, and I was living in a commune, and we were using raspberry leaf, we would routinely give pregnant women comfrey and raspberry leaf together to foster healthy children.
Because it's so nutritive, right?
And there never was a single case. And then there was a guy who wrote a book called The Comfrey Green Drink. And we were all drinking comfrey green drink every day. Mm-hmm. So huge amount of comfrey was being ingested, and we didn't see anybody dropping dead from it.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I have a comfrey cookbook from 1964.
Exactly. So I mean, while it's something that I think herbalists need to be aware of, I don't give it a lot of credence because of my own personal experience and historic using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the threat that Kratom presents to the pharmaceutical industry is really the key to why it's being vilified right now. And I think that the idea that it could alter your perception of reality, which is not necessarily accurate idea about Kratom, but it's the idea that's been put out there. It's a little bit like reefer madness, except for cannabis actually can alter your perceptions. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot like reefer madness, except as you point out, cannabis does, and Kratom doesn't.
Right.
And as a recreational drug, I think it's really not very much. It's not interesting.
Yeah. I find myself personally really frustrated and angry because opioids, even if that is the painkiller that might be best for you, they're very expensive. So people who need that painkiller end up in a position where they become trapped.
Mm-hmm. They're buying heroin. They're buying heroin instead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's scary.
Because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That gets all these people who thought that heroin was some sort of a drug for underground derelicts and so forth, rolling around on the street from heroin addiction, and it's really tragic.
Yeah.
But Kratom doesn't do any of that. So it's pretty hard, I think, for the FDA to build a case to say conclusively that Kratom is dangerous. It's like they would really like to make that case, but they have to pit it against the probably millions of people at this point.
I'm hoping we have the numbers. I'm hoping that we really do have the numbers to keep this plant free.
I think that's one of the advantages in living in an internet culture, as opposed to when ephedra came out, is the mass communication enables people to get together faster and share information better. And, of course, the internet has its disadvantages, but one of the nice things that we've seen through some of the other, like the Parkland shootings, et cetera, people mobilized quicker because they were able to communicate with each other faster. So perhaps this will be to our advantage as well. Just keep putting facts out there and listen to people when they're talking about their fears, and make sure that they know that they're heard, and then say, well, I'm happy to tell you that here's some facts that will make you feel better. Those are scary things. You're right. Yeah. Never devalue someone's fears as much as your inner self says, man, I've got a great snarky comment for this particular situation. But it doesn't help in getting more allies. So that's probably, in my experience, that seems like it's the way to go. We just need to keep soldiering on and advocate for what's healthy and what's just. And that's not always an easy road to walk down. Any other perspective from you, Doc, over there in Michael Tierra land?
Yes. Did you ask me a question?
Oh, yeah. I just wondered if you had any other things that you wanted to share with our listening audience before we let you off the phone hook here about Kratom and some of the situations that we may not have touched on yet.
Well, Kratom does have a traditional use in Thailand and countries where it grows. Interestingly, Kratom is illegal in Thailand.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because it was competing with the opioid drug trade, and the country was very much dependent on taxes that were levied on opioids during the early 20th and late 19th century. So they made Kratom illegal because it was people were using it instead of opioids, so the government wasn't getting any taxes from it. And that persists today, although there's a movement to legalize it again. That's also afoot. But some of the traditional uses of Kratom is for dysentery and diarrhea. It's of course we talked about its use for drug withdrawal and painkiller, but and also the white vein Kratom being specifically good for boosting energy, and also as a mood enhancer for depression, as an antidepressant. And it's also a blood sugar stabilizer, anti-malarial, and anti-inflammatory. After all, it's got a nasty bitter taste and lots of alkaloids. And alkaloids tend to be things that fight off different kinds of pathogens. So anyway, I think that people should be aware that there's one organization. There's actually a few that have put out reliable information, but one specifically that I find very reliable is the American Kratom Association. Mm-hmm. So whenever you're reading any slurs or any issues about Kratom being regulated or causing a death, or recently they talked about Kratom, batch of Kratom had salmonella, and yeah, that can happen with any herb, and it's not a good thing. But right. The American Kratom Association is a good website to bookmark whenever you have any questions about what's the current issue with Kratom legally and so forth, and its uses and all these things. I'll go to that site. I use it all the time.
Well, we'll be sure to bookmark that on our website in the show notes.
Yep. So, and I know you did you have on YouTube a webinar on Kratom that we'll have link for that on the show notes.
What's the name of that webinar, Michael?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Kratom, just Google Kratom webinar, Michael Tierra, and you should be able to find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
That was an amazing webinar. It was intended to be an hour and a half long. Uh-huh. It went on to 2.5 hours because I asked people to share their experiences at the end, and I didn't realize that we had over 400 people in that webinar.
It was pretty amazing.
I didn't realize that so many people have been using it and were eager to share their experiences. And I was hoping to hear some negative experiences during that whole time. Mm-hmm. And
not a one.
So you were disappointed. I am so sorry.
There wasn't one negative thing that went down about it. And you can listen to that webinar and hear all the different ways that people were using it, and how it's turned people's lives around. Intractable pain is no fun.
Right. No. Well, I'll tell you a negative thing about it. It does not taste good. I tried it, and you're talking about putting a half a teaspoon in your mouth and then washing it down. That is No, I can't. No, I'm not. I'm not going there, buddy. If I ever got to use it again, and I hope I don't have pain issues that I need to use it, then that I will go ahead and do the tea and stick as much sugar or anything. Good God, anything in there. I'm not as brave as you are.
You can put it in capsules. I haven't found that the tinctures of kratom work very well, actually. But
the tinctures, yeah, I know traditionally it's used as a tea.
A tea or a powder, or
Yeah.
chewed just straight up.
Chewed straight up. Yeah. Well, I don't have a kratom tea tree sitting outside my house. So
No.
Things that improves it is to take it with lemon juice, and lemon juice actually potentizes it.
oh, that's a good thing.
That's
Would that
good to
also
know.
work for vinegar?
Yeah, apple cider vinegar, but I think lemon juice is more pleasant.
Yeah, a
Okay.
lot more pleasant, probably.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. Well,
So don't be afraid of using kratom, and I recommend everybody buy a pound of it right now from some reputable source and stash it in the freezer. It'll keep a long time that way. Buy a pound of the powder and keep it for that day that you or somebody you know that might really need it.
oh,
Yeah.
In case I have about 7 or 8 pounds stashed right now.
uh-oh.
Well.
You got a big freezer. Yeah.
Yeah, my freezer's overloaded. I'm going to have to get another one just to keep the kratom, I think.
Well, thank you for being on our show, Michael. And please share with the rest of us how people get a hold of you.
Sure. The best way is to go to my website, which is the website that describes the East-West Herb Course. And I also have a blog, a 2-part blog on kratom there that you can read more extensive information on it. And Leslie Tierra and myself both relate to that website. And you can then write to the address that's on the website or call area code 831 336-5010. 831-336-5010, and you get the administrator of the East-West Herb Course.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
So that's the best way to get in touch with me. And but just remember planetherbs.com. That's the address website.
Planet Herbs. Okay. Well, thank you also for your work in the past, not only with your books, but the clinic and all of the work that you've done to help herbalists around the world.
And helping found American Herbalist Guild.
Indeed.
Thank you very much for that.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank
All
you,
right.
Michael.
Well, thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
And you know now what time it is, guys? It's time to
Put an herb on it.
Not howdy doody time.
What?
Not howdy doody
No,
time.
you're not supposed to bring anything else up to it. It's
Oh.
put an herb on it.
Put
and
an
we're
herb
done.
on it.
Put an herb on it. And we're done. Okay, next time. So everyone, till next time.
Put an herb on it.